the payments are amazing, and it's so cool to have programmable money. It's so cool to be able to stream sats per minute. But if you don't tie in the social features in terms of interacting with the show, interacting with the audience, and displaying that directly from the player, then you do lose some of it. I'm seeing more and more people that didn't come from a Bitcoin. They're not doing it because they like Bitcoin or that they find Lightning exciting or cool. They're just doing it because they find the act of providing that value rewarding. At least in the short term, value for value is not going to replace other monetization methods for creators and podcasters. I think there'll be a mix. We have a lot more plans for Nostr. I think it's an amazing technology. It's so simple. You don't need to drag everybody kicking and screaming from one technology to another technology. You can just bridge them together.
Oscar Mary is the co-founder and CEO of Fountain and was actually the very first guest that I had on this show back when it started in late 2021. In our conversation, we covered Fountain's evolution over the last year. We discussed Nostr and the role that it might play on Fountain. And then we got into the concept of value for value and creator monetization in general. Now, you guys know the drill. If you enjoyed this episode and if you learned something new, the best way you can show your support for the show is by sending in sats over the Lightning Network. Now, if you have not ever tried a Lightning podcasting app, this is the perfect time to go to the App Store, download Fountain, give it a shot. You're going to be hearing from Fountain's CEO. If you have any feedback on the app, you can send a boost. Oscar and I will both see the messages and we will both get a split of the payments you send in. So a perfect opportunity to give a Lightning podcasting app a try if you have not yet already. Before we get into today's show, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. And Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Oscar, welcome back to the show. It's been 99 episodes since you came on for the very first episode. I think there's many listeners here who know Fountain and who understand what you're building. For those who don't, though, let's just give them a quick background on yourself and Fountain.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, great to be back. And congrats on 100 episodes. I know I've received so much value from listening this past 18 months. And I'm sure everyone else has too. So yeah, congrats on 100 episodes. For those who don't know Fountain, it's a podcast app. It does everything you'd expect a podcast app to do in terms of searching, building up your library of shows and episodes, and listening to podcasts. In Fountain, you can support your favorite creators with Bitcoin. So you can stream money per minute to your favorite shows, or you can send a one-off payment with a message, which is called a boost. All of the boosts in Fountain turn into comments on the episode page. And also they will propagate out through our social graph to your followers on Fountain. So it's a great way of discovering new audio content and great content. You can also create clips on Fountain if you hear something you really like, and you can actually earn money, earn Bitcoin when people like your clips and comments. That's a high level overview for those who don't know.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just thinking back now to our last episode. So this, I believe we recorded it in October of 2021. And this was me just really trying to figure out, I was just at the earliest stages of studying the Lightning Network. And I had discovered Fountain, I discovered a few other apps, but I wanted to try stuff. And I was like, I want to see if this value for value system and Lightning payments, if it's actually going to work or not. And, here we are 100 episodes later. So it's working, and there's more listeners tuning in every day. I just, the last couple of weeks have had all-time highs in show listeners. There's tons of people supporting the show. So it's really working. I'd love to hear from your side though. My last 16 months, I've seen this like steady climb and this graph of people tuning in and people contributing to the show heading upwards. What has life been like on your side watching Fountain grow over the last 16 months?
Yeah, it's been great. And I definitely think it's working from our side as well. Obviously, we see the data across a lot of different podcasts on the app, and we're starting to see a large number of shows get regular support week in, week out. And the great thing on top of that is we're seeing more and more shows that don't necessarily have a Bitcoin focus or a Lightning focus, or even a tech focus, starting to build their community on Fountain and receive support from their listeners. I think there's definitely still so much that we need to do to truly make value for value and podcasting 2.0 go mainstream. A big problem is still the onboarding. We've come so far compared to when we first launched Fountain, but there's still a lot to do there. Go out to your average person in the street and ask them to get started. It's still challenging. The onboarding for podcasters as well is challenging. We've had an incredible amount of podcasters claim their show on Fountain and set up a Lightning wallet, but that's only really the first step. What we've learned, I'd say the number one learning from the past 18 months has been that if you don't incorporate the value for value ask into your show content, then it's really going to be difficult for you to be successful with it. I think the shows that are making significant revenue from their audience regularly ask them to support, read out the boosts on the show. And so I think that onboarding journey from getting to the point where you create your Lightning wallet and you're ready to receive payments to actually building a community, having your audience not only interact with you as the host, but with other members of the audience in the comments. That is still a big challenge, and there's a lot more that we need to do there. But overall, it's definitely working. Podcasters see the value in this system, and they don't care about Bitcoin, which for me is really exciting. And also, I think listeners, including myself, just as a regular user of Fountain, we're starting to see the discovery signal that is propagated through the boost payments actually work. So you'll see a boost for 100,000 sats, 250,000 sats, and the comment that goes alongside it, and it provides a much stronger signal in terms of maybe I should check that episode out. You can obviously save to your queue directly from the Discover feed. So yeah, in summary, it's definitely working, but we're still at the early stage, and we've still got incredible amount to do if we want to seriously compete with Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I think we can get there, but there's still an incredible amount to do. So yeah, maybe episode 200, we'll come back and we'll be there up with 10% market share. I don't know.
Sounds good. I've got a lot of questions. So first, I want to dive into the comment you made about people outside of Bitcoin that are taking to Fountain now and are starting to embrace this podcasting 2.0 or value for value system. How are they finding Fountain, and what kind of success have you seen from people who are not in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, so the way this generally works is quite cool actually. It kind of bounces from podcaster to listener to podcaster back to listener. So most of the podcasters that have joined Fountain or added a Lightning pub key to their RSS feed will have done so because their audience have asked them to. So often you will have probably somebody from the Bitcoin community who also listens to 10, 15 other shows, and they will regularly pester the podcaster to say, hey, I'd love to support you on Fountain and some of these other apps. It's really easy. It takes 2 clicks, claim your show, and then the podcasters will they'll go through that process, and then when they do that, their audience are suddenly aware of it, so they hear it directly from the podcaster. To give you an example, we just had Jordan Harbinger claim his show on Fountain last month. He's a massive podcaster. He has 5 million downloads. And I had a call with him, and he said, I kept seeing these tweets on Twitter, people saying, hey, I want to send you Bitcoin. I want to support you. Claim your show. It takes 2 clicks, obviously, in Fountain. It's really easy. So yeah, it's definitely been driven by the audience, people that have experienced that positive feeling of sending a boost to their favorite show and wanting to do that for their other shows as well. And so we make it really easy for them to do that in the app. If you see a show that's not been claimed yet, we pre-populate the tweet. So yeah, it's been audience driven. That's how the podcasters hear about Fountain. That's why they sign up. But then the next stage is podcasters actually talking about value for value, reading out the boosts on the show, and the audience interacting with each other. And that's why both listeners and podcasters stick with us. And then, those new users will turn into advocates for the new shows that join. So, yeah, it's quite organic in that sense. But again, it's a long process from claiming your wallet to actually understanding how you can build a community on Fountain and how you can actually, provide a lot more value to your audience.
Right. And are there any learnings you guys have had in the last little while about what the audience really cares about? Like, why is this audience, starting to get new podcasters on board? Like, why does it start with the audience? Are they excited about the fact that, they can now message their show host and interact directly? Are they excited about, now they can support with money? They're both kind of bundled together in certain ways in the Fountain app where, you can send a payment with a message. But I'd love to hear your view on what the audience cares most about and whether or not it's that money component, the interaction, or something else.
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's the interaction over the money. But the money attached to that interaction just makes the feeling so much better on both sides. I think, if you think about the legacy podcasting apps, when you have such a deep connection to the hosts of your favorite shows, but you can't interact with them when you're listening, you have to leave the listening experience, leave the podcast app, go and figure out where on the internet that you should contact this person or message this person. And there's just an incredible amount of friction involved. So the ability to know as you're listening, at any time, I can reach out to this person. And because I'm sending a payment with my message, maybe it's a comment, a thank you, a question, you kind of have a heightened sense that the host is going to see that and they're going to appreciate it. So it makes the interaction a lot more powerful because it has a payment associated with it. But I 100% think that the value is the interaction as opposed to just the money. When we first started, we thought this is great. We can give podcasters the ability to get paid and get paid per minute as well. But I think, the interaction, the community, also the interaction between the audience. You have no idea who else is listening to your favorite shows unless the podcast has set up like a Discord or Telegram group is what we often see. But the ability to just tap the image on the player and suddenly see, okay, who are the other people that find incredible value from this show, reply to their boosts, click through to their profiles, see what clips they've been creating from other shows, like their comments and send value to them, and start building up a connection and a community. So yeah, it's definitely the interaction. But the interactions are so much stronger because there's money involved. And also, if you really want to show your appreciation, you can up the amount to whatever you want. We had a show, Linux Unplugged, that just got to their 500th episode last week, and we were seeing, multiple 500,000 sat boosts from people saying, "Hey, I've listened to this show for 5 years or whatever it is. I just wanted to thank you so much." And because you see as the listener, okay, this is the bar now to, get to the top of the 500th episode. It's 500,000 sats. So that encourages more people to do that. And I think the payments are amazing, and it's so cool to have programmable money. It's so cool to be able to stream sats per minute. But if you don't tie in the social features, in terms of interacting with the show, interacting with the audience, and displaying that directly from the player, then you do lose some of it. So yeah, definitely the interaction.
Why did it take so long for the legacy podcast platforms to even offer any interaction. Like, as you said, for the longest time, you couldn't even message the host of the podcast. You had to go out of band. You had to go to Twitter or Instagram, which all the other social platforms had messaging built in, or either DMs or direct interaction with a creator. And it seemed like there was this open opportunity, and then all of the podcasting 2.0 apps could sweep in and say, hey, look, we just built this interactivity now. Why wasn't that in place already from the legacy platform standpoint?
Yeah, this is such a interesting question because you're right, it didn't exist. And the reason is because of how podcasting is so fragmented. So if the easiest comparison to make is with online video, which is not fragmented at all. Everything's on YouTube. You don't even think, you wouldn't ask somebody, where do you watch your online video? Like, what do you use? It's like, no, you watch your videos on YouTube.
Right.
And so the comments on YouTube, like, even, you know, people know about the comments on YouTube of like, oh, did you see the comments to this video? You don't even have to say where those comments are. You just know it's the YouTube comments. If you compare that to podcasting, no one podcast player has more than a 30% market share. So even if you are Spotify and you have the engineering and design resources to build out a commenting system, it doesn't really serve a good purpose for the host, because you're essentially saying, in order to comment, you have to use this app. And so you're alienating 70% of your audience straight away before you even ask people to comment. And that's why, as a podcaster, um, you're probably not going to go in that direction. You'd much rather, set up a Discord, set up a Slack, set up a Telegram group, or use one of these paid community platforms, Patreon, that exists outside of the listening experience. So it's because podcasting is so fragmented that I don't think this really happened before. If we had designed and built the exact same UX that exists in Fountain today, but it only worked within Fountain, it also wouldn't work. It wouldn't be as popular. The reason why it's popular is because this payment system and the commenting system that we've built on top of it is able to happen not just within Fountain, but in other apps and also hosting providers. So, for example, on the episodes that I talked about for Linux Unplugged with their 500th show, people are sending boosts from Fountain, they're sending boosts from other apps, they're sending boosts from websites, even, command line interfaces, and they all show up on Fountain in the comments thread. So you can see, oh, the top boost was from this user on Fountain. The second top boost was from this user on Fountain. The third top boost was from this user from a different app. So that integration between the different apps and hosting providers is the only reason why this is working, and the only reason why podcasters are excited about it, because they can see that, oh, this is actually going to fix the problem that I've had for 5 to 10 years, which is I've had to send people to Telegram. Now they can see that, okay, yeah, we're still quite early, there's a lot to figure out, but ultimately they see that this is turning into a cross-app commenting system with payments, and it's going to enable their audience to pay them, leave a comment, question, a thank you, but also for them to interact with each other no matter what app they're listening on. So I think that's a key difference in podcasting compared to online video, YouTube, other social platforms.
Right. Now, one other thing you mentioned was the signal of being able to show in a timeline who's sent a boost to a particular show, right? I see that whenever I open the Fountain app. I see, all the people I'm following and like what boosts they've sent to different shows. Is that the format that you think will transcend across different social media apps and become the norm? Like the money being a signal of what is good content? Or is there some kind of hybrid approach that's needed? Because I guess money itself can be gamed as well, right? It has a different set of incentives and different ways in which it can be gamed. But one way is just, if I'm really wealthy, I can spend more money than the guy who's not wealthy, right? And so I'm thinking a lot about that and trying to understand how timelines on social media apps are going to be structured in the future. And I see your app as one variation on structuring timelines, right? Most of them, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, are kind of like closed algorithms. You don't really know what's going on. You guys have a different setup. And I would love for your thoughts on how that setup is working so far, whether or not you think a purely money-based algorithm or timeline feed is the way to go, and if not, what else might be in consideration?
Yeah, I think definitely you can't just rely on the money as a signal for what content is worth listening to or worth paying attention to. It needs to be combined with other signals. Um, most of the biggest one of which is a trust signal. So, you know, if I know you, if I have a relationship with you, if I follow you, then your money signal is worth a lot more than somebody that I've never met before who is really wealthy and can send, a couple million sat boost. So yeah, you need to combine the money signal with a trust signal, and also other signals as well. I think, what we have today in Fountain is very simple. But there's a bunch of stuff that we have under the hood that's already starting to combine that trust signal with the money signal. And I do think, in response to your question around other social media platforms, I do think that they will all eventually incorporate some kind of value signal, because ultimately it's just such a stronger signal. And also it removes the negative incentives that content creators face, which is chasing the algorithm. So the biggest example of this is YouTube. You have content creators that are creating videos two, three times a week, not because they want to or because they have an amazing idea for a piece of content. It's because the algorithm punishes you if you don't keep that level of consistency. You also have, I'm sure we've all seen these videos on YouTube where it's twice as long as it needs to be because you're incentivized to maximize people's attention on that video. You get more ad revenue if you keep the content longer. So I think most people and the content creators I speak to as well, they know this inherently, and the value signal is a way out of that attention trap. I think what we're doing with Fountain is a very early example of this, but I think it's inevitable that all media platforms and all social platforms on the internet will have some form of value signal, probably driven by money, because it's that's what it's there for. So yeah, I'm really excited about that more generally outside of podcasting and audio, because I do think it will create better incentives and encourage people to just focus on producing valuable content as opposed to trying to game some kind of system.
Yeah, and that's a good point you made about the fountain does have a trust element already in place in addition to the value element, right? The fact that I'm following you, I see the things that you are boosting. So there is some element already in place. But on the point about the value signal, I'd love to learn more about your thoughts on whether or not, like, what are some of the follow-on effects of moving the internet to a value-based system? You mentioned one with YouTube where, maybe you're optimizing for ads today and your videos are longer than they should be. And so maybe we see shorter videos in the future, more concise, to the point. What other ideas do you have around, like, what might change when we have a value system in place?
I think the big one I always think about is the person out there that just wants to create one piece of content. They only want to create one video, and they have this idea, and you know they don't want to become a YouTuber or produce weekly content or figure out a show format that works or a video format that works or optimize what they're doing for the latest algorithm trend. All they're doing is creating one piece of content that can provide value for people for years and years and years to come. And they can get paid for it and rewarded for the value, not just the attention. I think that's the example where I do believe that there's a lot of content creators out there that would that they're either A, creating content that they don't want to right now and are probably unhappy because of it, or they never started in the first place because they didn't want to go down that road. Um, yeah, I think there's, sometimes we find these gems on YouTube, or maybe it's a podcast. We find these incredible pieces of content that, um, you know, teach us something fascinating about the world that we didn't know before, or change our perspective on something about the world. And, you know, that they're out there, but they're difficult to find, because if you go to YouTube and you see the recommendation systems, they're not going to give you those pieces of content because they're not aligned with the ad model and the trap of that attention signal. So I think that's the example I think about. I've personally experienced it, but I think there's a lot of content creators out there that need a new incentive structure to actually produce that content.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it makes sense that, you know, it's not normal to have great ideas on a weekly schedule, right?
Yeah,
Like if I'm trying to generate, if I was doing this show on my own, like I bring on other guests and I talk to them about their ideas. But if I were to do this show on my own, like many YouTubers do, they have their own content, they just talk to the camera and they do it every single week. And like, what are the odds that the good ideas they have in their head exactly line up with their weekly show? Pretty slim. So you're right. You could definitely see a shift in the ways in which people create content, maybe put more thought and care into it, knowing that it could last very long, forever, maybe. And
exactly,
yeah, it's really
exactly.
changed a lot.
And you know, imagine you have an idea for a piece of content that you want to create. And I think, we're using video as the example because that's the biggest, most obvious example of where it's really, the incentives are really messed up. Um, but imagine you have an idea for a video. You think it's going to be amazing. You think it's going to provide a lot of value. What's the first thing that you're going to do? You'll probably go to YouTube and you'll type in, how to make a great YouTube video, and you'll see all of these, there'll be amazing guides and amazing walkthroughs and tips, but they'll push you in a direction that you didn't necessarily need to go in. They'll push you towards a certain type of content. They'll push you towards a certain format, and that might discourage you from ever making that content, or push you away from your original intention, which maybe was a unique thing that doesn't exist right now. So yeah, I think that's the biggest example I think about.
Hmm. And do you think then, as a creator who's earning money today, maybe from YouTube ads, tomorrow maybe on Fountain, value for value, maybe in the future there's even more monetization opportunities in the Bitcoin and Lightning ecosystem. How do you think about the amount of money creators will be able to earn on Bitcoin or on Lightning? Like what changes there? Because it is direct, you know. So in one sense, it's like I no longer as a creator have to take the like scraps of someone else's ad revenue that, YouTube tosses me. It's now I can get 100% of the money. But on the flip side, I now have to ask for the money. And it's a real, the person listening or consuming the content does have something to give up. They have to give up money rather than giving up time watching an ad. So would love to hear your thoughts on what change you'll see or you expect to see in the amount of money creators earn and kind of the distribution of creator economics.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here. I think the first is that, at least in the short term, value for value is not going to replace other monetization methods for creators and podcasters. I think there'll be a mix of sponsorships, um, value for value, maybe subscriptions, maybe membership. So I think they'll all coexist, and that's fine. But I think over time, the proportion of that will be from value for value will continue to rise. And I also think you touched on the importance of the ask in the value for value method. And I also think that will reduce over time as it becomes more of a norm. Right now, you have to explain how this all works. What do you mean? I pay, I get the content for free, and then I pay after the fact based on the amount of value I received. That is quite a new concept for people. So you have to explain it. You have to give examples both to the listener and the podcaster of, hey, here, go and look over here. It's working. This is how they do it. Obviously, over time, though, as people become more accustomed to that, and as the platforms and the apps like Fountain do a better job of actually implementing this and pushing people towards it and making it easier, because it's still not that easy. Then I think the ask will become less important because people will be used to doing it. They will have spent years doing it, and yeah, it will just become more of a habit. But I do think right now the ask is really important, and yeah, the other monetization methods are still going to be there. But I think the magic of it is that there's no cap at the upside. So you know, maybe just week in, week out, you won't get that much. But if you find a super fan that absolutely loves your content and has for years, then that can be a really significant amount of money just as a one-off. So yeah.
Right. Okay, now let's talk about earning on the listener side. This is a new concept that you guys introduced, pioneered in, I believe, April or May of 2022, and now it's been run for, I guess, 9 or 10 months now. What are the learnings from this? Maybe explain the concept for those who are not yet on Fountain, but would love to hear the learnings in the last 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, so it was in July of last year that we introduced the earnings rewards on Fountain. So now on Fountain, you can earn Bitcoin just by listening to your favorite shows each day. There's three ways that you can earn on Fountain. The first is daily rewards. So Fountain pays you for the first hour of listening each day. Um, the reason that we do this is fundamentally everything that we've been talking about, we believe provides a large amount of value to listeners, to the creators, and to us as Fountain, because we get that discovery signal. So we think that the users of our platform should participate in that and should be rewarded for it, which is why we pay out the daily rewards. We fund these daily rewards through our transaction fees and our ad fees as well. So that's the first way you get paid, by Fountain each day. You can earn more by listening to promoted content. So podcasters can say, hey, come and sample my show. I'm going to promote this episode. I'll pay you 1,000 sats to listen to it. And if you like it, maybe you'll stick around and become a subscriber. We also have brand ads as well in there. So yeah, that's earning from promotions. And then, of course, everything that you produce as a listener on Fountain, whether that's a boost, a comment, a reply, or a clip, you can also earn through our paid likes feature as well. So if you create a clip on Fountain that provides a lot of value to the people that are following you and the people that are following those people, and it kind of bubbles up through there, then you have the opportunity to earn sats from that as well. So yeah, I think it's been really interesting since we launched it. The other reason we launched this as well, separate to that, is just as an onboarding tool. So most people that come to Fountain will have never owned Bitcoin or don't have Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. And as I said, before we launched the fiat on-ramp in January of this year, downloading another Lightning wallet, figuring out the invoices, it is quite complex. And so the earnings feature was also a way to give people their first sats, experience the feeling of sending a boost to a podcaster for the first time, and then top up their wallet more from there. So yeah, I think it's been really successful. I think people really love earning the sats each day, and if we have an issue, like one day, even for an hour, we'll have a lot of tickets. So people love earning sats each day. They're sending those sats back to podcasters. They're experiencing Bitcoin and Lightning for the first time. And yeah, ultimately in the long term, I do think it aligns quite well with what we want to do, because we will reward the best users on our platform based on the discovery signal that they generate for the best content.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage empowers engineers to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments into their business stack with an enterprise-grade experience. The team at Voltage is building the complete toolset so that you can do more than simply spin up nodes, but also understand and interpret your node's data. Their new product Surge gives engineers the capability to quickly solve problems and optimize operations. With node insights and visibility through time series data, you get dynamic and complex insights never available before. You can get complete control with insanely fast onboarding, advanced client-side encryption, and zero management infrastructure, making backups, networking, and upgrades simple. Get a free 7-day trial today at voltage.cloud. I mean, this is another one that's going to throw the rest of social media for a loop because none of them pay their consumers or the listeners, right? Like whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Like you on YouTube, you can get paid as a creator, but you're not getting paid as a viewer. And it's interesting to me because when you look at the enterprise value of some of these businesses, you look at Facebook at, I think at one point they got pretty close to $1 trillion or maybe even more than $1 trillion as a market cap. You look at like that value is because they have all these users that they can target with ads, but the users are not getting any piece of that pie. And so this kind of makes me think like what happens when this catches on, this listen to earn concept, and people go all of a sudden, wait, my information is worth something, my data is worth something, my time's worth something, me being on this platform, I'm helping Fountain by being a user. So, hey, I should be getting money. And then they go to Facebook and go, hey, Facebook, what's up? Why am I not getting paid? I wonder what the implications of that are, because there is a ton of money. And I think in the last decade, most users of most internet apps have been led to believe that their data is worth nothing. They've never earned money for it. And as far as they're concerned, they post a picture of their dog online, or they, send a message to their friend. Like, they've never been paid for that before, so they think it's worth nothing. But now you're kind of teaching people that your time and your effort and the things that you bring to the Fountain app are worth something, and you can now participate in that. What does that do to all the other apps that are not paying anyone any money?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we're still scratching the surface of this, and the earnings features that we have in Fountain are very basic to what I think they will eventually be. But what's so interesting about these models is that everybody wins in the model. So, for example, the clipping is the example that I like to give, which I think highlights this the best. So, as a user on Fountain, as a podcaster, it takes a lot of effort for you to go and create a clip from your episode, and also the thing that you think is the most insightful point in that episode is probably not what the majority of other people are going to think. So you don't really have the time to go out there and create clips of every single moment in your episode. So if we as Fountain and you as the podcaster can incentivize your audience to go out and do that for you just so that they can earn, then you can get to a situation where you're benefiting as the podcaster because you have a group of people that are going to go and dig out those insights from your long form content, create clips and share them out to their communities. So you're going to benefit as a podcaster. Fountain is going to benefit as a platform because we're going to start to distill the signals, the connections between these different pieces of content and figure out, okay, how do you learn about this particular topic in the audio form? Okay, start with these 2 clips, then go to this playlist, then go to this long form episode. So we benefit from it as an app and as a platform. And then obviously the users benefit from it because they can earn. And, people earning from clips right now, it's still small numbers. But since we introduced the activity feed in Fountain 0.6 at the start of this year, you can see this starting to happen. So I don't have to be following the person that created that clip in order to see it in my feed, because all I need to have is a chain of paid likes that bubble all the way through to my feed. And every time that that happens, every time that somebody receives value from the clip, and sends it back in the form of a paid like, the user that created it is earning. So yeah, I think it will change the way you know people can kind of earn for their time and attention. But yeah, it's really basic right now. It's a very much a V1 and lots more to do.
That's fair. Have you seen any changes in engagement from users that are now able to earn money? Like, does it actually change the way in which they engage with the app?
I think one thing that was a bit surprising to me is people love listening to the promoted content. Um, some people actually just listen to the promoted content every day, because they like the earnings so much, and it's not like they're just doing it for the money. They actually are enjoying the content as well, but they've kind of like built this habit of just listening to that promoted content every day. So that's interesting. It was surprising to me because I thought that the promoted content would just be a one-off. But yeah, what else? I think the biggest thing is it does encourage people to boost, because they'll earn over a period of weeks or even months, and then you'll see them send it all back to their favorite content creator in a boost and say, hey, these are my fountain earnings from the last month, 2 months. I'll give them to you. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. One thing I want to touch on is I believe this is your very latest release. You added Nostr verification. And so you have NIP5 and NIP57 in your latest release. So I just added my NPub to my Fountain profile, and now anyone on Fountain can click it and get my Nostr profile. And then I can also now receive Nostr payments and zaps, and they will land directly in my Fountain wallet. Pretty cool stuff. I'd love to learn more about the role that Nostr plays on Fountain over time.
Yeah, so just to talk about this first integration that we've done. So yeah, NIP5 and NIP57. First off, if you're following somebody on Fountain, you probably want to follow them on Nostr as well. So that's just a simple way to kind of connect your follower graphs. Pretty simple and pretty obvious where the value is there. And then with the NIP57 zaps, I mean, it was such a no-brainer for us because we already have a lot of technology that is really valuable around receiving payments and the metadata that lives alongside them. So for podcasters and for any Fountain user that receives podcast income, we have not only the feed of incoming payments and the metadata associated with them, and the ability to click out to the content that the payment originated from, be that the episode, the show, the clip. But we also have analytics on how much you've earned today, last 7 days, last 30 days, last 3 months, who's supported you the most. So it was very simple for us just to extend that analytics and that kind of dashboard of how much you're earning to Nostr Zaps. So now if you set up your Lightning address in whatever Nostr client you're using, with your Fountain Lightning address, you'll receive all of that analytics, and you'll also be able to just click through directly to the Nostr post that the Zap originated from. So yeah, we think it's a pretty no-brainer for us to do that at this point. Also for podcasters as well, you want all of your payments and all of your payment analytics in one place. And also it's interesting for them, okay, so I released a new episode. I've shared it on Twitter. Obviously, I've put it out in my RSS feed. I'm going to share it on Nostr as well. And then how much did I earn from Zaps versus boosts versus streaming sats? So that comparison in earnings between the three, I think, is really useful for podcasters, and to have that all in one place was a no-brainer for us. So that's why we did that. And then, yeah, going forward, we have a lot more plans for Nostr. I think it's an amazing technology. It's so simple. It's just really is so simple, which is, I think, the most powerful thing about it. And, there's been a lot of debate in the podcasting 2.0 space about cross-app comments over the past year, 18 months even. Originally, so we've kind of taken a first step in podcasting 2.0 in terms of the boosts are able to be surfaced as comments in Fountain from any other app. That's great, but there's a big flaw there, which is you can't reply to the boost unless you're on Fountain. So I can reply to a Fountain user that sent a boost, but I can only view the boost from other apps or from the web. I think Nostr solves this problem perfectly, and it doesn't just enable cross-app communication within the podcasting space, but also allows that to be tied back into the wider Nostr ecosystem. And obviously, you can bring your followers as well. So I think it's a great fit. I don't think Nostr is going to replace RSS for content, because RSS works so well, and there's so many other features in the RSS feed that we need and are incredibly powerful, like the transcripts, some of the other new podcasting 2.0 features that are coming down the line. So I just think it's a great way to solve what we've all wanted in the podcasting space, which is a truly cross-app commenting system where you can not only view but reply between the different apps. So yeah, we've got a lot more planned in that area.
Nice. Okay, so you mentioned Nostr probably will not replace RSS. Do you think it will replace any existing internet standard, or is it mostly going to be complementary to other standards?
Yeah, I think it's going to be complementary. I don't know, to be honest. It could, but I think there's so many quick, easy wins where you don't need to replace other technologies. You just connect them together. I think the other thing is you don't need to drag everybody kicking and screaming from one technology to another technology. You can just bridge them together and say, there's even, people working on like Nostr and Mastodon bridges. So I think the way to do this is bridge the technologies together as much as possible, allow people to move between them, and then just see what provides the best experience.
Right. And so then it's not, you're not forcing a person to move. You can let them, if there was a world where you could host your podcast on Nostr or on RSS, people would have that option, and you would be the tool kind of like bridging the gap there, allowing people to interoperate.
Yeah, I think, why would you want to host your podcast on Nostr? Because you wouldn't be able to go out to all the podcast apps. So I think you need to keep the tech. RSS works really, really well for podcasting. There's no reason to replace it, but there's definitely room to extend it, bridge it to other technologies, use it in conjunction with other technologies, just like we're doing with the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network hasn't replaced RSS; it's just extended it and it's just added to it. So these things can work together. Right.
I think we're in the phase of Nostr development where everyone's so excited about it now. We're all discussing ways in which it's going to take over the world, and I appreciate your perspective that maybe it's just complementary. Maybe it just works together. Maybe it doesn't change everything. Maybe it does, but maybe it's also kind of like a step change, or a bit of a transition to a new set of protocols working together rather than one protocol to rule them all. I want to transition a bit to podcasters, and when thinking about how to get more podcasters on board, you mentioned earlier that sometimes it comes from the audience. That's where these podcasters start from. But there's millions of shows that are now. There's millions of podcasts on the internet. There's about 12,000 or so that are now podcasting 2.0 shows that can accept value payments. How do we get from the 12,000 to the 4 or 5 million?
Yeah, so there's two parts to this. One is the listener side, and the other is the podcaster side. And they are kind of a chicken and egg, because, as a podcaster, I'm not going to, if 99% of my audience don't listen on an app that supports this, then why would I ever set myself up? It takes a lot of work. But I think So yeah, there's the listener side and the podcaster side. On the listener side, we need to make the onboarding even easier. So in January, we launched the Fiat on-ramp in Fountain in partnership with MoonPay. So now you can top up your Fountain wallet with a debit card, with Apple Pay, with Google Pay, and it makes it so much easier because you never have to go through the cognitive load of downloading a Lightning wallet or understanding what that is. You just top up the Fountain app with Apple Pay or Google Pay. That's massively helped us, and we've seen some great initial payment volume through that integration. So that's a big step in the right direction, but it still has a lot of friction involved because you have to go through a light KYC with MoonPay, which we don't want that to exist, but we have to do that in order to be compliant. So I think the onboarding for the listener still needs to improve massively for this to really go mainstream. One way that I think that's we're going to do this is with new non-custodial tools that allow you to not have to go through the KYC. I do think that will eventually happen, and we're paying attention to it, and we do have aspirations to have that. And then the other way is I'm hopeful that more and more the actual regulations around purchasing very small volumes of Bitcoin on the Lightning Network are loosened. Maybe I'm a crazy optimist to think that that will happen, but I just think it's so logically obvious that if you want to top up an app to pay $10-20 to a content creator, like you shouldn't have to be uploading your driving license or passport. It's crazy. But yeah, the listener side, it's all about onboarding people to the payments technology.
Yeah.
And also on that side, I think I said this last time, but it's not just Fountain or podcasting that's pushing this forward. The onboarding to Lightning is happening in every vertical. You've got like the likes of Cash App that are doing such amazing things. So I think the listener side is going to move forward steadily, but it will be slow. On the podcaster side, what's incredibly exciting is what the hosting companies are doing right now, which is a lot of them are massively embracing value for value and Lightning. So we've had just in the past couple of months, we've had RSS.com and Blueberry both announce Lightning integrations. And this means that as a podcaster hosted on one of those platforms, you can set up a Lightning wallet and you can manage your splits. So that's amazing. Obviously, we offer this too in Fountain, and we think we offer like a lot of additional benefits on top. But the hosting companies are paying attention, so it's inevitable that this will continue to be adopted in podcasting. And there's hundreds of thousands of podcasters that use these platforms. So yeah, those two things make me very optimistic about the growth of value for value and Lightning in podcasting. The other bit, though, that's really important is the education piece about how do you actually go from having a Lightning wallet as a podcaster to receiving support and having a community of people that are interacting with each other. And that's the part that's more difficult because it requires education, it requires content, it requires case studies, it requires deep thought about how you want to approach your content creation. So that's the other part that we need to continue to push forward. But luckily now we are starting to see case studies in terms of shows that are doing incredibly well, receiving large payments, but also producing that community that I think is even more important than the money. A place for listeners and the host to interact with each other, discuss the episode, and pay each other as well.
Yeah. I want to touch on that point you made about KYC. I agree with you that it should not be required to have to, upload your driver's license every time you want to send someone 10 cents or whatever, right? But I'm curious to know what makes you optimistic that that regulation will unfold in favor of Bitcoiners who don't want KYC. Because when I look around at the regulatory landscape, I see a lot of Bitcoiners feeling like they're on the wrong end of the law. Like they're always, they set up this new rule to get in our way. What's the deal with that, right? It seems like a lot of the regulation, maybe there are examples here and there where uh, places are becoming Bitcoin friendly, but I think the majority of places have become kind of anti-Bitcoin, or like, especially in the wake of FTX, it's like that's further reason for a regulator to regulate, right? So I'd love to hear why you're optimistic about it and what makes you think. Is it just that the Lightning Network payments are so small typically that it'd be too much of a burden, or what makes you specifically optimistic about this?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe I'm being naive, but I think one of the reasons I'm optimistic is because people are going to choose products that provide them with a better experience. So I'll give you an example. In the UK, we have a lot of banks that will block any Bitcoin or crypto transactions. So, for example, if you wanted to top up your Fountain wallet with Apple Pay or Google Pay in the UK, there's certain bank accounts that just will not let you do that. The payment will get declined and you won't be able to do it. But there's certain banks that do let you do it. And so what do people do when they encounter that problem? They switch their bank accounts. So the optimism that I have is people just switching from the um, businesses or products that don't want to allow these payments to the ones that do embrace it. And I think Cash App is the biggest example of this. We don't have Cash App in the UK in terms of their Lightning integration, but as soon as that comes, um, why would you use a legacy bank account when Cash App supports your favorite podcast app and lets you pay your favorite content creator? So I think, yeah, maybe it is naive optimism, but I do think that if we can continue to build really cool, fun products that provide value using the Lightning Network, then there will be either regulated financial companies that make the onboarding really seamless, like Cash App, for example, or there'll be other solutions that let you do that. So I think the products will force the financial institutions to allow it, at least at low levels.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, there's one other thing that I think about a lot, which could, I think it could make it so that regulators don't really have much of a choice, is if we can get enough people earning Bitcoin in maybe in small quantities, but if we get enough people slinging sats around the internet, it just becomes the norm, and it becomes like so politically unpalatable to try and stop it. And so anyone who gets in the way of that, uh, would just be kind of like ruining their own political career. But we're very far from that today. We're still a small percentage of the population that is slinging sats around the internet. Although, to be fair, it is a much larger percentage than it was when we spoke last. It was still very new, and Lightning, the concept of sending Lightning payments was still new. I don't remember exactly what the first Lightning payment I sent was, or I received was, but I imagine the first time we created our episode 1, I believe you sent a boost after that. That might have been one of the first Lightning payments I received. And so now it's just like an everyday occurrence. We just like almost take it for granted. Like you just wake up and you have a bunch of boosts, a bunch of tips from Stacker News, a bunch of zaps from Nostr, a bunch of this and that, and it's just money flowing just the way it should be. But that kind of makes me optimistic that if we see enough people earning in enough quantities, or enough quantities of people, even if it's small amounts of money, that maybe could skirt some regulations, or establish like larger caps. Say,
Yeah,
anything under
exactly,
$200, it's fine.
exactly. And this probably is me being naive, but I just think that you go out in the world and you use cash every day to buy things, and you don't have to provide KYC. And I've had conversations with people that work in regulatory organizations, and they do understand that. I just think we really need to push for some kind of low limits where you don't have to provide KYC. And I think that you're right in the sense that there's going to be more and more people interacting with Sats, earning Sats, you know, buying Sats through like KYC services, and then looking for a place to withdraw them to that is more of a long-term place to store them. And I think that's going to generate a large amount of demand for services, and the best ones are going to be the ones with the least KYC. So I think there's going to be a lot of demand there. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens because yeah, there is a lot of pressure on the regulatory side.
Yeah. I wonder if onboarding non-Bitcoin podcasters, like maybe this isn't super applicable to my show because a lot of people who listen in are very familiar with the Lightning Network. But have you seen shows having success by just asking their listeners to contribute money rather than like, because now you do have that onboarding fiat onboarding ramp. You can have someone put in their Apple Pay straight to Sats, straight to donating to a show. Are any shows doing that maybe come from backgrounds that are not Bitcoin focused?
Yeah, they are. And we actually, more and more, we don't use the word Bitcoin when we talk about Fountain. Obviously, we've got such an amazing community of Bitcoiners, and we're Bitcoiners ourselves. Um, but I do think for the mainstream, it's easier if you don't mention the word Bitcoin for a lot of podcasters. And I do think as well, you know, this is just UX and product decisions that we haven't quite got to. But, you know, are you really buying Bitcoin if all you're doing is making a payment and sending it instantly to a content creator? Um, does that require the KYC? I don't know, but maybe it doesn't. So maybe there's UX and product features that we can implement whereby it doesn't even feel like you're using, like you're taking your fiat currency, transforming it into this thing called Bitcoin, this thing called Satoshis, and then making the conscious decision to send it. Like maybe we can just jump over that step. Obviously, we'll still use Bitcoin to power the system, but yeah, maybe we can kind of skirt that. But yeah, we do talk about Bitcoin less and less in the value proposition. It's more about, yeah, the ability to support your favorite content creators, the ability to pay them, and the ability to interact with them as well. Bitcoin's just the technology that we use under the hood.
Right. Okay, I want one more question on the topic of earning money. We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the show, but I've noticed that we have now a couple of offerings out from traditional social platforms where they are passing money to creators in some way. Twitter with Elon at the helm now has this $8 Twitter Blue, and apparently some creators are earning a portion of that fee depending on how popular their content is. We've seen Spotify now has a podcast subscription offering, but none. When I look around, and YouTube has, I think YouTube Red, and I think or they have a YouTube subscription, and some of that money goes to creators, and so a creator can earn from the ads and from the memberships and they can earn directly from. I think there's like a dollar or $5 tip or something on YouTube. And so there's a couple of different ways in which people are now offering creator monetization options, but most of them aren't in the context of value for value. They don't really line up with what I'm seeing in the Bitcoin space, where almost everything is value for value. I'd love to hear, are you more bullish or less bullish on the concept of value for value today than you were, when we were just starting out 16 months ago?
I'm definitely much more bullish on it because I'm seeing it happen every day, with an increased volume every month. And I'm seeing more and more people that didn't come from a Bitcoin. They're not doing it because they like Bitcoin or that they find Lightning exciting or cool. They're just doing it because they find the act of providing that value rewarding. That's why they're doing it. It's a rewarding act to support a content creator that has provided value to you over the years. So yeah, I'm more and more bullish on value for value. I also think that there will exist in parallel other monetization methods. So the idea of subscriptions or memberships, I don't think that's a bad idea, and I think that's going to live alongside value for value. So, for example, I see a world where maybe some of the shows that you listen to, you do pay a monthly membership fee because you want to support them on a regular basis, and then some you don't. And then both of those examples, you send boosts and value for value payments on top. So I think they can coexist. Um, the other thing that I think around some of the features that the other platforms are introducing is they're not tied into the product experience, which I think is a massive um, flaw, because what we've seen work so well with value for value on Fountain is that it's right there as part of the listening experience. So you see it in your feed, you see the payments, you see the paid comments, the boosts on the episode page. You can see like the top supporters. If that metadata around the payments is hidden away and only the actual content creator is seeing it in some kind of analytics dashboard, then it's missing a massive piece of why this is so rewarding, because it's not just rewarding because me as a listener gets to send the payment. It's not just rewarding because you as the content creator get to receive the payment. It's the fact that that interaction then becomes public and it almost becomes content in its own right. So I don't see that aspect of it being put forward in some of these other ideas from whether it's Twitter or Spotify. So I think that's an important part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I want to finish off with the roadmap. I want to hear about what you're excited about, what you're most looking forward to in the rest of 2023.
Yeah, so I'd say the number one thing is to continue to um, deliver on an amazing podcast listening experience and continue to push that forward. I mean, I was looking at the screenshots of the Fountain app from back in 2021, and it was embarrassing how terrible it was. So we've got a lot of work still to do just on the core podcast app listening experience. And for anyone listening who's using Fountain, please do get in touch with us. We write every single thing down, and we're working through it, because ultimately payments, social features, all of this stuff is meaningless if we can't provide a good listening experience. And I know we have a lot more work to do there. So yeah, it's a big push, and we're constantly working on that. So yeah, please do let us know. But separate to that, some of the things I'm excited about are continuing to develop the social features so that you have more of an opportunity to discover great audio content that you might not have otherwise, you know, actively subscribed to or followed. The clipping as well needs a lot of work in Fountain. One of the really cool things is the developments in some of these open source models has been massive over the past 12 months. So, you know, I think probably when we spoke last, we were talking about our transcription costs, and you know, the transcript based clipping on Fountain is right now behind the premium paywall. Please join that if you haven't already. And but yeah, we can now start to offer this stuff for a lot cheaper and make the clipping experience faster. A lot of improvements there. So yeah, that. And then also, I'm excited about other mediums of audio too. So one of the things we're working on is the live item, which will allow podcasters that record live to actually listen to that live stream in the app and have all of the metadata around the payments and the messages that occur during the live stream kind of persist on the episode after the fact. So I think this is powerful because, you know, if you think of boosts today on Fountain, you have the ability to influence the next episode if the host is, you know, doing value for value in the right way, because they'll read out the boost. But it's almost more powerful if you can influence the current episode as it's being recorded. Like, for example, if people were listening live right now, we could take audience questions and we could, you know, answer them based on who sent the biggest boost. So that's an example there, live item. And yeah, just other audio mediums as well. I'm thinking about, because I do love audio as a medium. I think it's really powerful because you have the speaker's voice, which is providing, emphasis, personality, which can kind of change the way that you hear the words. But I think this content can come from a lot more places other than just what we think of as a traditional podcast. So yeah, other audio mediums. Um, and then, yeah, I think just the onboarding as well is the other thing I'd say, just making it easier for podcasters and listeners to get set up, to try out value for the first time, and to kind of find a community for the first time as well. So yeah, we've got an incredible amount still to do. And whether it's the podcast listening experience, um, the clipping, the payments, the social features, experimenting with other audio mediums. We've got a lot to do, but I'm really excited about it. And I think yeah, as we said at the start, it's definitely working. I mean, hopefully you see that too as a podcaster, and yeah, just continue what we're doing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to see. I mean, I remember that first episode. I should go back to see how many people sent in sats that first time. I mean, a lot of people have sent in sats to that episode since then because it's been out for so long. But I'm pretty sure when we filmed that and published it, there were max like 5 people that sent sats.
Yeah.
And it was like we're just getting started, and like it was cool to see the 5 people contribute. But now it's incredible. It's like we went from like single digits people, now then double digits. Now I'm looking at triple digits every month. It's like hundreds of people contributing in some way to the show, and people creating clips. It's incredible. So yeah, definitely seeing the progress on my side as well.
Yeah, and I think the example, one of the things that we've only really started to see in the last 6 months is these episodes that kind of do incredibly well. So I talked about the 500th episode of Linux Unplugged. There's been a few other examples over the past 3 months where the level of support has just been so above average. There's been, hundreds of thousands, millions of sats on the episode. And there's been like, 50 plus people sending in boosts to the episode, whereas the average is quite low. So I think what it shows is there can be these outliers, whereas in the other payment system, you're never going to get an outlier. Like you're never going to have an outlier ad revenue
Yeah,
week.
YouTube's not going to send you like 100 times your normal
Yeah,
payment.
yeah, exactly. Or like if you have a subscription or a Patreon, people aren't going to just like 10x their Patreon for a month. It's just going to continue on steadily, and I think that feels so special to the content creators when they receive that, and it's such a great motivator as well to continue to shape the content in the right way. That's something that we've heard as well, that the support is actually so meaningful, even if the amounts are still quite low. So yeah, more of the same, hopefully.
Yeah, I think about this time last year, I got my first really big boost. At the time, I was like, "Whoa, it blew me away." It was, I think, 200,000 sats, and it was in that one moment. When I opened my phone, it was like more than I had earned, I think, in the entire show's history, or like at least the previous 2 or 3 months. And so I was like, and I had only been doing it for 4 months at the time, so it was basically like the biggest payment I had ever seen on Fountain. I'm like, whoa, it's incredible. Just having one second, someone just decided, this show is worth a lot, and they sent a lot of money. So you're right. It's very cool. I want to finish off with one final segment I do at the end of every show. It's called the lightning round. Got a few rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning-powered platform for generating high-quality transcripts of all your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. To see the results for yourself, you can check out my personal website where I host transcripts for all my podcast episodes. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. So the first question, I usually ask people one book that has changed their view of the world. But for you, it's going to be one podcast that has changed your view of the world.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to say Dan Carlin. Not just a single episode, but so many of his podcasts have changed the way that I look at the world. They're incredible. I would encourage everybody to go and, listen to his shows, purchase his shows. Interestingly, his shows are an example of and this is not a quick fire answer, so maybe I'm messing it up,
No,
but
you're good.
um, his shows are such a good example of the problem we're trying to solve because they're paywalled, most of them. So you have to go and pay upfront $9.99 to unlock all of them. And everybody that's listening should go and do that because they're so incredible. But that takes the content away from so many people that otherwise would have heard it. Anyway, they're amazing history podcasts, like 8-9 hours long, some of them, talking about, there's one on Japan in the Second World War. There's ones on, all kinds of different history. And I think it just puts the modern world in perspective. So much crazy stuff happened in the past, and actually where we're at now, despite all of the negative news out there, we've come so far as, the world and humanity. So I think those podcasts are a real reminder of that, and it's quite grounding. So yeah, definitely go and check out Dan Carlin, and hopefully we'll get him onto Value for Value soon. He actually responded to a tweet, but we didn't close him. So
Okay. Well, this is my next question. Maybe other than Dan, who is one podcaster? If you could only pick one, and it can't be Dan, who would you bring on Fountain?
good question. Maybe the All In podcast, because I think they are, they're kind of trending at the moment. They're very, very popular. And also they have, actively talked about how they could easily sell an incredible amount of sponsorship on their show, and make a large amount of money from doing that. But they don't want to, mess up the relationship between themselves and the audience. They feel like they've built a lot of trust there. So I actually think for that reason, it would be a good fit for them to be able to interact with their audience in a new way.
I agree. Yeah, it's a great show. See, that's actually the only one I like. I religiously, every week I listen to it. It's good stuff. If you could change one thing about the Lightning Network, what would you change?
I think the ability to receive offline, because right now that's limiting us in pushing the non-custodial route within Fountain, because there's incredible developments happening, but unless we have the ability to receive offline, then it's always going to be a limiting factor, because we want any Fountain user to be able to earn from a podcast. And that means that, if their phone's off, if they're on a plane, if they're, wherever they are without an internet connection, they won't be able to earn from that guest appearance or the episode. So yeah, offline payments, offline receive is the biggest thing. I think there's some stuff happening that means we will get there in the coming years.
Nice. If you could only hold one asset and it could not be Bitcoin, what asset would it be?
I should have prepared for this one. I'm a regular listener. I know that this is coming. It would probably be I don't know if it's a cop out to say knowledge, but I think knowledge is an asset. And if you know that all of your money is going to disappear, then it's always worth investing in your own education and your own knowledge, because that's going to live with you forever. So yeah, maybe a bit of a cheesy cop out answer, but
No, I like it. Self-education. It's
yeah,
definitely very important. I mean, that's I think a lot of us in the Lightning space, a lot of the builders everywhere have to some degree taught themselves, because if you're building something new, it means that there's not, it's not something that you can learn in school. It's not well documented yet, especially in technology. There's a lot of the way to succeed in technology is to be able to teach yourself things, right? It's to be able to learn as fast as you can without having well-documented answers for every single question you have. So, yeah, I agree. And
Yeah,
then
and also
finally,
it's
oh,
oh, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Lightning round. No, go ahead.
Well, final question is, who's one person in the Bitcoin or Lightning ecosystem you'd like to give a shout out to for doing great work?
Yeah, so I'd like to give a shout out to Tim from LNPay because, LNPay powered all of the payments infrastructure for Fountain, for the majority of Fountain's existence. We've obviously now switched over to using Zebedee. But yeah, Fountain wouldn't have got to this point without Tim and all of his support. He's been an incredible, member of the team from afar. And yeah, shout out to LNPay. It's still an incredible tool. We still actually use LNPay for some of our infrastructure. So if there's anyone building and wants to get started on Lightning, definitely go check out LNPay. And yeah, big shout out to Tim.
Love it. Thank you for taking the time. Where can listeners go to learn more about you and Fountain?
Yeah, so just go and download Fountain. We're live on iOS and Android. You can go to fountain.fm to learn more. And yeah, the number one request would just be, speak to your podcasters and get them on board. A lot of podcasters have joined just because people have contacted them. So yeah, go through your list on Fountain and just send out an email, tweet, a message, and let's see if we can continue this thing.
Love it. Thanks again for the time, and hope we can do it again for episode 200.
Thanks, Kevin.
In the last 7 days, you guys sent in 6,467 sats. That came in from 14 different supporters. That was all through Podcasting 2.0. You guys also sent in some sats through Nostr Zaps. It's kind of hard to keep track of everything lately, but I'm doing my best here. So thank you for everyone who has sent in sats and comments. Let's run through a couple of the comments of the last week or so. We have, first up, Siggy47 says, oldie but goodie in response to episode 17 with Kian Kusha on Stacker News. That is an old episode, but also a great one. Beastie Buffalo sent 420 sats and said, great episode on episode 99 with Desiree Dickerson on Thunder Games, and says, I'll be checking out Thunder. Every sat counts. I could listen to Desiree talk all day long. They just launched a new game. If you have not checked out episode 99 yet, give it a listen and check out their new game. Koira boosted 500 sats and said, nice one. Again, in response to episode 99. Defunct Mode boosted 1,000 sats and said, enjoy your show when it pops up on Fountain. Again, same episode 99. And we had a couple users create clips of past episodes. So thank you to everyone who's been doing that on Fountain as well. It helps spread the word and get more people listening to the show. Excited to see what you guys send in this week. Keep an eye out for a couple more episodes coming up in pretty short order. I should have 2 more episodes out in the next 3 or 4 days. See you then.